Today we were talking about all things maternity leave here on Free Mama TV. I am joined with one of my students, friends, and just all around amazing humans, Briana Elliott. She is a business operations expert and certified Dubsado specialist and is on a mission to empower pregnant entrepreneurs, of which I am no longer, to confidently step into motherhood without sacrificing the stability of their businesses. Over the last 4 years, Briana has gained valuable insight into the challenges and unique needs of expecting business owners. And as a mom, you guys, she gets it. I get it. If you're already a mom, maybe you get it too if you're listening. But she has lived through these challenges and she has emerged with a drive to support others on the same journey. And that's what we are going to talk about today. Briana, welcome to Free Mama TV. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, let's dive in. I'm really curious why this is so important to you, because I know I had 3 very different experiences. I've got 3 kiddos. I had 3 very different experiences. I was working a 9 to 5 when my oldest, who are now 11 and 9, and also times change, politics change, all these things evolve. But I remember back with Daphne, I had to take, all my short-term disability, which I think at the time was like 6 weeks, partial pay. Then they make you take all of your vacation time, and then the rest was unpaid. And I took 12 weeks with her, sobbed going back. If you know my story, if you've watched anything from me on Free Mama TV, you know, though, that I had this light bulb moment of like, okay, I love working, but I hate working for someone else. So this was really transformative for me. I was also full-time unpaid with Henry. I think I took a little bit less time with him because of that financial aspect. I mean, like, all right, I gotta get back because I need the paycheck. And then with Audrey, I'd actually been self-employed for a couple of years by the time she came around. And so it was a totally different experience. I didn't really take a maternity leave, but at the same time, I never really worked full days. So it worked for me, but I know for a lot of people listening, like the idea of maybe bringing their laptop to the hospital is like a little bit not what they want to do. And that's cool, because one thing I'm really passionate about for women in general is like to each their own, but it's about figuring out what you want. So what happened with your babies or your maternity leave stories that makes you so darn passionate about this topic?
Yeah, so when I have 2 kids, and so my first one, I was working a job that it was with a really small company, and when I had maternity leave, it was completely unpaid. There was no partial paid maternity leave. There's only 5 of us in the company, so there was no
Wow.
anything. And so I was only able to take, I took 6 weeks. So I took, they gifted me 2 weeks of vacation.
Your
to
vacation, your time,
They
or
gifted me,
extra?
they paid me for 2 extra weeks that I
Okay.
wasn't there, which was very, very nice of them because they didn't have to do anything at all. But then I had 4 weeks completely unpaid, but I wanted 6 weeks home with my son, which towards the end, I bawled, I cried because that wasn't long enough for me. And that's when I found the Free Mama, and I went through your program. And then with my second one, I was a freelancer. I'd been a freelancer for 2 years. And when I got pregnant with her, I was like, okay, awesome. Like, I don't have to worry about that. And then I sat down and I was like, well, what am I going to tell my clients? How am I going to make this work? I want to take some time off. But what am I going to do here? And so it was a completely different ball game than it was with my son. But I, like you said, I wasn't working full days. So that also came into play. So I started researching and seeing what I could find about taking maternity leave as like a freelancer. Like, what can you do? And there really wasn't anything on the topic. And so it's like kind of having to piece together and DIY how I'm going to take maternity leave. And so I was able to find somebody to cover some of my clients while I was gone, and able to batch out some work ahead of time and things like that, that gave me the ability to take 5 weeks off. And 5 weeks is less than it was with my son, but like you said, and I said, I wasn't working full days to begin with. So that was just nice to have 5 weeks of just knowing that I was still had some income coming, and was able to just enjoy that space. And then also I came to realize that having a newborn, they sleep a lot. And so I had a lot of creative space. So I was able to
Mm.
focus some of that time in my creative space, which was really nice. But going forward, I mean, it having to piece it together is really hard. And so having some sort of roadmap, or having somebody be like, hey, you're not alone in this. This is something that can be doable and you can take as long as you want. I have had friends in this space that have wanted to take 6 months, that have wanted to take a full 12 weeks. And it is possible. I've seen it work. I've seen it not work. So I know some of the do's and the don'ts of what works and what can really cause some bumps in the road in your business. So I just feel like there's a lot of experience there over the last 4 years that could really be beneficial to some other people and kind of help you get that balance between family and having this business that you also love. It's another baby. You built this thing and you want it to succeed. So you want to be able to
for a lot
spend
of us, it's a necessity, right? You got to
Yes.
have, you might rely on that. Your family might
Yes,
also, it
exactly.
might have to come in. Well, we'll get back to some of those do's and don'ts in just a second, but I'm curious, why don't you tell everybody, first of all, what you do? I was working as a social media manager when I had Audrey. So just for some context, because one thing I know, having coached so many different women, is different niches have different requirements. Some have a lot more client touch points than others. You know, some are really hands off and you kind of turn over the project, and others you might be communicating with clients like every day. So what do you do in your business? And then what of that do you think translates to all freelancers? And then can you kind of speak to, like, you know, maybe what's the first thing you should think about if you are really active with your clients? Maybe you're a virtual assistant, an online business manager, you have that regular communication, or maybe someone who's like a copywriter that isn't maybe quite as invested with the team on like a daily or weekly basis.
When I went on maternity leave, I was a VA, still an executive virtual assistant for several clients, and I was an OBM.
So pretty hands-on. Lots of communication. Yeah.
Lots and lots of communication, lots of handling people's schedules and things for them. And so if I'm not there, you know, it just kind of,
who's going to do it? Yeah.
Exactly. So that was a really big hurdle, is trying to figure out how am I going to keep this communication still going. And even now I'm more of an operations specialist, because I like the back end and building out the processes and the systems and the things like that. So I'm a little bit more hands off from the day to day than I used to be, but there's still a lot of client communication and touch points. I think my number one tip for anybody that is in that space, the VA, OBM, anything that has to do with that side of the business that is more retainer based and continual communication wise, is really, you need to think about how you're going to communicate this, what you want early on, and what you planned for yourself and for your family early on. So, and when you do that, you also need to make sure that you cover the bases of how are you going to take care of them? Because that's what, when you tell them that you're pregnant, they may be excited for you, or they should be excited for you. But they're also going, okay, now what's going to happen to me in my business? So
which is normal. That's
which is
normal.
So normal.
Like,
and that's fair. And it's very fair, but you can't just say, hey, I'm going on maternity leave for three months, you know, I'll see you in 3 months. And you have to tell them, I think you need to give them plenty of headway on it.
Well, that was one of my questions, is what's the sweet spot on telling your clients that you're expecting? When should that communication happen?
I honestly think it should happen in month 4 or 5 of your pregnancy. Be early on, be straightforward and upfront with them, be like, hey, this is what my plan. I am due around this time. I'd like to take X amount of time off. This is my plan to keep your business covered, because I would love to continue working with you when I come back. I plan on returning on this date. Have that all laid out and figured out, so they have like no questions. You want to make sure that they feel like they are being supported the entire time, and that you have their business in mind the whole time. So for somebody that has constant communication with clients every single day, or a lot of communication weekly, that's really important, is you should be able to have those kind of conversations already. And even if it feels kind of crunchy, they're going to respect you for having a game plan and having thoroughly thought this out. So for constant communication, VAs, OBMs, people like that, definitely have a plan. And even if you're a copywriter, and these clients depend on you sending them content every month or blog posts or whatever, I would highly suggest, like, even if it may not be where you have to have a constant touch point, be like, hey, let's batch out 4 or 5 months of content right now. That way
Yeah.
you feel like you are covered before I even step out, and we don't have to worry about it. So if you are more of a copywriter or graphic designer or something like that, be like, hey, let's try and get this all figured out ahead of time, because not only will they, yes, you're doing more work in the interim, like right now, but in that second trimester, you have a little bit more energy anyways. So utilize that to your advantage, because you're going to want to spend that time and decompress after a baby is here. And you are going to want to just, if you have more than one kid, you're going to want to enjoy that changing family dynamic and get used to that new routine. So you're not going to have to or want to worry about having a deadline for some copy that's due. So it's something that I think that they would respect. They would love the fact that you batched it out ahead of time. And you can talk to them about like continuing your monthly rate, even through like, hey, I did all this work ahead of time. Can we come to an agreement that I'm still
Consistent
getting paid?
income. Yep.
Yeah, so your
Yep.
income is consistent while you're gone. So
I love that. Well, let's go back to those do's and don'ts. I feel like they're usually intertwined and related. So let's start with the don'ts. What are some of the things that people either come to you with questions, or you're seeing people doing, and then they're either scrambling or they're just stressed or upset with kind of how things went? What are those top don'ts that you're just like, I'm sure they're all floating around in your head already?
yeah. So a big one is client communication and telling them. I feel like there's a lot of people that tell their clients too late. There are several people that I have talked to that have wished that they started thinking about their maternity leave earlier on, because it's kind of like, I don't need to think about that right now. It's kind of a denial game. Like, I can still get all this stuff done. And then you get into your third trimester and you're like, do I really want to take some time off? And then you're like, oh man. So thinking about this early on and planning out your maternity leave early on is going to set you up for success for both your business and for post baby. You're not going to be in this fight or flight kind of mode. Then you have, like, if you need to hire a subcontractor, if I suggest doing that early on, or start bringing them in like halfway through your pregnancy, so you can see how they work with your clients, so you can see how they fit with your team. Because if they're not a good fit, you're going to need to find somebody else. And if you hire too late, then you could be in this, what am I going to do? This person isn't working out. What's my contingency plan here? Some people like not taking a maternity leave at all and then regretting that. That's another don't. Not nurturing future leads. Not having a way to continue to get people into your pipeline while you are on maternity leave is something that I've seen before. You always want to continue to market yourself, even if you are stepping away.
What can that look like? Because I agree, as a business coach, I see that, whether it's having a baby or kids were home for the summer, or it's like anytime we completely take our foot off the gas, whether it's like your literal workload that day or that batching, that planning, that's what momentum is, right? Momentum is staying in motion in some capacity. And for whatever reason, when people stop, it feels really hard sometimes to get going again. And I hear lots of language about like, feels like I'm starting over, starting from scratch. And that it's just not a fun place to be when you've already worked so hard to get started. So what is an example of something someone can do when they're on either a maternity leave or any type of sabbatical for whatever reason to kind of keep that pipeline moving?
Honestly, you can pop into a story, like it's just something as quick as that, like a life, not even like a life update, but something that resonates you, that you're like, oh, this has a parallel to business. Just little things like that, just continually showing up in just little places, like, oh, there she is, oh, here she is, like, and bringing it back to, hey, I still do this, and not I still do this, but hey, I do this, and my availability is going to be open here in a couple of weeks. Make sure you snag your spot. Like, just little things like that. You don't have to plan out a ton ahead of time if you want to, and you're a big planner. I am a big planner. I like to have a bunch of stuff batched out ahead of time. But if you are just like, I don't have the bandwidth for this, along with making sure my business is set up, to sustain my absence, to continue to market myself, 30 seconds every couple of days is something that you can do to keep your presence there.
Yeah. It's the visibility. It's like you said, it's that reminder of like, hi, I'm here, I exist, so that people can kind of keep you top of mind when you're ready. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, back to the don'ts. What have we missed?
The biggest one, besides not client communication, is not setting up your systems in your business. That, like, not having any systems, having any structure on the back end, because you're the one in there working in your client's businesses all day long. You may not have your business set up with the systems and automations and things that you need to have on the back end to just kind of work for you and be there ready for other people to step in if they need to and take over those things. So if you're going to outsource something and you don't have any processes in place for that, it's going to be very hard for you to communicate that with somebody that you're outsourcing or subcontracting your work to. Just general business do's and don'ts for you is important to have. Like, okay, how does my daily routine look? Like, what does somebody, if they come in or are interested in this service, how am I going to continue to nurture them? Just different things like that. If it's different every single time and there's no structure to it, you're not going to be able to step away, because you're going to constantly have to fill that spot, because it's all in your head and it's different every single time. You need to be able to sit down and write out your processes, your offers, your everything, and make sure that there's something in place for everything across the board. How you find folders in your Google Drive, where emails live for specific things. Like, I have multiple inboxes, and that's just me. Like, I have one inbox, and then I have like need to respond to kind of an inbox. How is that going? Like, how are you going to be able to set your business up for both you to succeed after maternity leave, but also just so on maternity leave, you're not opening your inbox to 100 emails. You see maybe what you need to see, only the things that you need to see. You need to think through some of those processes to have your business set up in a way that you feel like you really can step back and relax. Because I don't know about you, but when I open my email and see 100 emails, I'm
that
like,
doesn't happen to me.
I can't work. Yeah,
I'd be paralyzed. I think I only get up to like 40, and that's if I don't check my email for like multiple days because we're traveling. And even then, usually I can cipher through most of them. I'm like team inbox 0, but I'm like you. I use my inbox as kind of my to-do list. So the things that are still there are like things waiting on me, like something is required. Let's dive into systems though, because I'm a pretty organized person. Are you an Enneagram 1?
I am an Enneagram 2, I believe.
Okay. I'm a 2 also. You must be a 2-wing 1 though, I would bet.
I need to go back and look.
Yeah. So one is a lot of VAs, a lot of OBMs. They're ones because they're organized. If you're listening to this, you might be more of a creative or something else, and you're like, systems, blah, like, I hate that. I don't want to do it. The good news is not only will this benefit you for your maternity leave, which if you're watching this video, congratulations are probably in order, or it's something you want in the future for yourself and your family. And so you want to be prepared, which again, congratulations for getting a head start on it. Systems is one of my 5 steps to scaling. So if you want to grow or scale anyway, this will be required at some point. So it's not just something you're doing for a 3-month maternity leave. Like, this is an investment in the future of your business, which is really cool. I also think, because I'm married to someone who's very visionary, very big picture, systems can feel really overwhelming if you're not a more naturally organized person. So Briana, I'm curious, like someone who's listening, they're like, well, crap, like I don't have any of that. So now I'm watching this and I'm feeling more overwhelmed and less prepared. Where can they start? Like, what is a crunchy, tangible thing that they could do or produce or whatever so that they can start collecting that information to have those systems to pass off to someone else?
Honestly, just hit record on Loom as soon as you open your computer that day, and just record. Like, you don't have to talk necessarily. You can just start recording so you can see your process. I would do that every single day for like 3 days, just as a place to start and be like, if you're in a specific system or doing a specific task that can be repeated by somebody else or that may be needed by somebody else in the future, just start talking, because you are already recording. You can cut it later,
Narrate.
but just start recording. It doesn't have to be like, okay, now I need to record a video on this. Now I need to record a video on this, or now I need to write out an SOP, because let's be honest, like I love SOPs, but I still don't like writing them. Like take it, record a loom if all day long. And if you are going to, if you're like, oh, this is definitely going to be needed later on, be like, okay, so this is what I do here. This is what I do here. Go back, download the transcription, and you're done. Like,
Yep.
You have the loom video and the transcription. You make it harder on yourself if by trying to break it apart. It doesn't have to be that hard. You make it as hard as you want it to be, in my opinion. So I have several friends that are creatives, and they're like, I hate systems. I don't like, that is the one thing that like I shut down on. And I'm like, why? Open your computer, start doing what you're doing, and just hit record, like, and just do your daily thing. You don't have to have your video on. It's just recording your screen, and that's all you have to do. And you just let it play, and then you can snip it later and be like, okay, so this is kind of how I do this, and move forward with your day.
Yeah. And that's also something you can give to your clients. So even if you're not outsourcing, like you're subcontracting when you're on maternity leave, like you can have a shared file with the client whose work you're working on, and that way at least they have it. They can go in and do some of those things if you land on an agreement where maybe it's not such a full-time thing and they're going to end up doing it, or whatever the thing arrangement is. It's something that now anybody at least can go in and figure it out without reinventing the wheel. I love that. Okay, so we've emphasized a lot, like the earlier you start, the better. But let's say someone is 7 months pregnant and they're listening to this video. So time has passed. What's the first thing they should do right now? Like, what is something they can do right now that will help them have a better maternity leave experience?
Sit down, figure out how they plan on exiting for maternity leave and how they want to re-enter. Because without that information, you can't talk to your clients. You shouldn't talk to your clients, because your clients might react more in a panic mode, to be honest. If you don't have a game plan. When you are going to take your maternity leave, when you plan on coming back, what's your action plan for returning to work? And then my next step would be to, hey, let your clients know, hey, this is what's happening. I'm planning on maternity leave. I've been expecting. I'm super excited about it. Hype it up, because it's something to be super excited about. And then sit down and write out the top 5 things that you need to do. Take care of your clients and make sure your business is going to be sustainable, whether that just be have a way for clients to be able to get into your pipeline while you're out, meaning like inquiry form on your website, that there is something working for you where you're not having to go respond like within 24 hours to this client, because you never know, with a newborn baby, it could be up all night. You may not want to respond to an email the next morning. So just make sure that there's a way that there is some sort of touch point with somebody that is coming in. Those would be my top things is come up with your game plan, your maternity leave plan, pretty much your birth plan for your business. Okay. And then communicate with your clients and make your list of your top 5 things that you need to do to take care of your clients, and make sure that your business is still running when you come back.
So let's talk about that return back to work, which was actually a note I had made, because I think so long we think about that going into maternity leave thing. What does someone need to be prepared for when they come back to work with a client?
That your plan doesn't always go according to plan. You may have the best laid out plan possible, but you should have like a backup thought process for that. Because you could have a baby that has colic or just needs some more attention, just needs some more snuggles, and you're just like, oh my goodness, I don't know how I'm going to be able to come back when I said I was going to come back. Or you may just need more time. Health problems do happen. With my first one, I was out for 6 weeks for a reason. And I was glad I had 6 weeks. there was some things that just didn't go right during labor. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm glad I have 6 weeks. But if I needed extra time, I couldn't take that at work, because I couldn't afford another week with no pay. So this is the beauty of working for yourself and having a business that can still be here and running for you in the back end, is if something like that happens where you need a little bit more time, you can pretty much give it to yourself. If you need that extra time, start popping on just Instagram and Facebook and continue to be visible, be a little bit more visible, just because you might not be returning to your computer for set hours of the day again, but you can be more visible again. Even more than you are when you were on maternity leave, if you were wanting to stay visible. And I would reach out to your clients and say, hey, I need another week. Just be transparent. Transparency and honesty is the best policy. So if something like that does happen and you need some more time, then that's totally fine. But the reentry, if you decide like, hey, I have so much free time, I don't know what I'm going to do, like, and I'm going crazy. I hit that point a little bit with my second one, if I'm being completely honest.
Oh, it happens for sure.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. And so instead of coming back early, I still took that time, but I spent that time working for me and in my business. So utilize that time for you and make sure that you are coming back in the capacity you want to. Having a baby changes the way you think about life and about your business. And if you have been wanting to make a transition into like a little bit of a different space,
or starting to create digital products or recurring revenue, which is also something you could do before. But yeah, you've got that space and creativity that maybe you didn't
do it. And this is your time when you are on maternity leave to really be able to pivot. This is a great opportunity to pivot or to scale. So you have, if you have set up your systems, like you said, in the back end, and your business is running smoothly, you have hired somebody, or it's able to run pretty much on its own without you being there as often. And you used to feel like you had to be there, and now you don't have to be there. You can see that it's still running for you. This is your time to scale. This is your time to make that jump into consulting or coaching. You can still have the clients that you have and slowly start making those pivots, but this is the time that you have to think through all this stuff. You're not having to work it into your day. And you've also seen that you can step back and spend some time in your business. So I think it's a very positive thing too, because you see that your business is a priority too, and you can spend time doing that.
You know, by the time I had Audrey and I was self-employed, I kind of knew, minus the unpredictable nature of health and things like that, I kind of knew myself, and I knew myself as a mom more than I did, you know, back with my first. So if we have someone watching and they are either trying for their first baby or they're pregnant with their first baby, and they maybe don't even know yet what they want out of maternity leave. They're like, yeah, 6 months sounds great, but maybe they're also like wired to go, you know, and high achiever. And so like, what are some things they can ask themselves to figure out what they want out of maternity leave so that they can start putting that plan in place?
Yeah. So first off, I mean, you don't know what you don't know as being a first-time mom. And there are a lot of things that you just learn about yourself through experiencing it. So you can make a plan to have 6 months off, but it's okay that if you know yourself and you say, okay, like me, I would not be able to, I can't sit still for like 2 seconds. So I have to constantly be doing something productive. So if that is you, just know, I would say, okay, do you think I would be able to truly rest during this period? Or am I going to need to do something? Yes or no? If the answer is I will not be able to truly rest, then and what I mean by that is like actually take a nap when the baby takes a nap.
Oh,
never listen to that advice.
I can't nap. So
I couldn't do it. So like if you constantly have to be moving and you don't think that you will nap when the baby naps, that's fine. Just know that you will probably return to work before 6 months, and that is okay.
But I love that because you should be conservative because you don't know. So like plan for more, knowing that then you can gift yourself that time back,
Right.
whereas the reverse isn't true. So like if you're like, oh, I don't need a maternity leave, and then you have a difficult baby, or you have a difficult recovery, or you're transformed into this napping machine all of a sudden, whereas before you were go, like you don't have that grace built in that you could have if you were more conservative with what you were going to require. So I
Yes,
love that.
continue to be conservative, but also know yourself. And just, even if you decide that you want to come back a little bit earlier, make sure you take some time as you and your business as a priority before just jumping back into client work, before you jump back into the grind. If you are going to be the kind of person that is like a me or a you that is very like, I just need to be working, doing something, focus on your business for a little while. And then if you do decide, okay, I decided that I want to come back early, that is totally okay. Your clients will probably love it, but also they will, it's not something to be ashamed of. And I want them to know that that's not
Oh
something to
no.
be ashamed of, is coming back early from maternity leave. That is your work-life
Or
balance.
taking the full 6 months.
Yes, either way is
Yeah.
totally fine. It is a personal decision. You are your boss. So you
Yeah.
get to decide that. And that's the beauty of this, is that you can come back working 3 hours a day if you want to, because you can. The other thing that I would say about reentry though is that make sure you kind of stagger start your clients. If you are going to come back in the same capacity and don't come back full throttle. I would come back stagger starting. I would tell a couple of clients that I'm starting this week, and then one or two more the next week, just so you are not coming back to um the full client load, because there will be some bumps in the road and changes to your routine that you're going to have to make. We like having a kid on a call, you like holding a kid while you're bouncing up and down while you're having a phone call, like it happens. So just getting used to those routines does take time. So make sure you're not coming back all at once for all your clients. Just stagger start it.
And man, those seasons are fleeting. I remember having nursing Audrey on calls. Now she's 6. And each one of the, I feel like every 3 months with an infant, you're in a totally different season. And if you have other kids too, it's going to look different. This is something we talk about in the Free Mama membership all the time, because at what point do you maybe need help or childcare, or are they going to preschool, or maybe you were doing the nap time thing and now they don't take naps anymore. So that's all post maternity leave, but just things to keep in mind, giving yourself grace and being adaptable to those different seasons. Well, Briana, I have learned a ton. One last question, which is there anything that I didn't touch on that you think that someone watching this video needs to know about taking a maternity leave?
So planning for your maternity leave and taking a maternity leave not only sets you up for your business to have success while you're gone, and it's your business to be sustained and keep running, and you be able to take some time with your family and work on that work-life balance, whether it be your first kid or your first kid freelancing or your second kid freelancing, and you're like, last time did not go well, I'm going to make sure it goes well this time. When you take the time to work through all setting up the systems, working on communication, all these things, bringing somebody on board, if those are the things that you need to do for your business and you see that they can work, not only are you setting yourself up for a successful maternity leave, you're setting yourself up for the ability to take 2 weeks off in the summer when you want to take 2 weeks off, or take 3 weeks off at Christmas time. You're setting yourself up for
I
being able to
love
step
that.
away at different times when you need it or when your family needs it. One of the things that I did not say is that when I was 19 weeks pregnant with my daughter and freelancing, I had not thought about maternity leave until I had to have emergency surgery for my gallbladder. And I was out for 2 weeks because it was all of a sudden, and I had to have surgery. They went in through my belly button right there next to my sweet little baby. And then I had to take 2 weeks off to recover from it and make sure that everything was good to go. And I realized that nothing was in place. So whether you are early on and you're planning this out, or you're 5 months pregnant, you can still plan for a successful maternity leave. I was able to realize, like, oh, this was not set up the way that I thought I could just bing it. And I was like, oh no, if you think that you can just sit down and be like, I'll figure it out in a couple of months, I would figure it out sooner rather than later, but it is possible to have a successful maternity leave going into further and further into your maternity, into your pregnancy.
And of course, because you are the best and the sweetest, you have come with a gift for everybody who is watching right now and might need some support with their maternity leave plans. So why don't you tell them all about that?
Yeah, so I have a resource called the Systems to Streamline Maternity Leave Edition, which kind of helps you figure out how to, it's a checklist of systems on your back end of your business that will help just keep things organized and streamlined while you are gone, and things to think about. You can find it on my website at briellevac.com.
We'll put the link also down below so you guys can find it below this video. So that might tell them what they need to go make Loom videos of, kind of.
Yeah, for the back
Cool.
end of their business, for sure.
Awesome. Very cool. And for people who want to follow you, connect with you, learn more about your offers to help them through this process of planning maternity leave, where can they connect with you?
Oh, you can connect with me on Instagram or Facebook. Those are the two places that I hang out the most.
Awesome. Well, we hope that people go find you and can learn more about having a successful maternity leave. If you guys have any questions for me, any questions for Briana, go ahead and drop them down in the chat and we will get back to you guys as well. But make sure you take advantage of that free resource from her. Again, you can find the link down below this video. Briana, thank you for hanging out with me and telling me about all things pre and post baby and business, and wishing you a very successful maternity leave.
Thank you so much, Lauren.